Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Radha, Krishna, Gopa Gopinath, Shyam Kund, Radha Kund, Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadip Mayapur Dham ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulsi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Shramaveta Bhakta Brinda ki jai. Gaur Prem Anande. All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees.
Hare Krishna.
All glory to Sri Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga Hari Hari Bol. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Shami Iti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
We are reading and discussing Sri Caitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, Adi Lila, chapter 17, text 39. And I see Mother Mukti Datri Radhika is there. Would you be so kind as to chant the Bengali authentically, as you can do?
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much.
কলার পাত উপরে থুইল উড়ু ফুল, হরিদ্রা সিন্দুর আর রক্ত চন্দন তন্ডুল।
On the upper portion of a plantain leaf, he placed such paraphernalia for worship as Oda Phul, turmeric, vermilion, red sandalwood, and rice.
মদ্যভাণ্ড পাশে ধরি নিজ ঘরে গেল, প্রাতকালে শ্রীবাস তাহা তো দেখিল।
He placed a pot of wine beside all this, and in the morning, when Srivas Thakur opened his door, he saw this paraphernalia.
বড় বড় লোক সব আনিল বুলাইয়া, সবার কহে শ্রীবাস হাসিয়া হাসিয়া।
Srivas Thakur called for all the respectable gentlemen of the neighborhood and smilingly addressed them as follows.
নিত্যরাত্রে করি আমি ভবানী পূজন, আমার মহিমা দেখো ব্রাহ্মণ সজ্জন।
Gentlemen, every night I worship the goddess Bhavani. Since the paraphernalia for the worship is present here, now all you respectable Brahmins and members of the higher castes can understand my position. Purport. According to the Vedic system, there are four castes: the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. And below them are the Panchamas, literally members of the fifth group, who are lower than the Shudras. The higher castes, the Brahmanas, the Kshatriyas, and even the Vaishyas, were known as Brahman Sajjan. The Brahmins especially were known as Sajjan, or respectable gentlemen, who guided the entire society. If there were disputes in the village, people would approach these respectable Brahmins to settle them. Now it is very difficult to find such Brahmanas and Sajjans. And thus, every village and town is so disrupted that there is no peace and happiness anywhere. To revive a fully cultured civilization, the scientific division of society into Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras must be introduced all over the world. Unless some people are trained as Brahmanas, there cannot be peace in human society. Om Agyana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Shayam Rupa Kadah Maham Dadati Shapandantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivashadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Before speaking, I'd like to ask the blessings and permission of all the devotees, and particularly those who may be senior by age or advancement in Krishna consciousness. Thank you very much. So this pastime of Lord Chaitanya involving Gopal Chapal and Srivas Thakur and others is not mentioned in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, but it gives us some very good lessons in execution of Krishna consciousness. So in this case, these Brahmins who are Srivas Thakur is pointing out that he must be a worshipper of goddess Bhavani, are known as, Srila Prabhupada and Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami calls them Sajjanas. Sajjanas. Sometimes in lectures or public gatherings, the people are addressed as, oh, Sajjana, Sajjan, Sanyari also, respectable gentlemen and ladies. Simply because those who are actually aware of spiritual principles, that the body is not the self, that the goal of life is to make progress in spiritual life, ultimately to become a devotee and serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Those people are especially valuable in human society, and one can approach them to resolve all kinds of difficulties and disputes in the society, as mentioned here. The same idea was mentioned by Srinivas Acharya in his prayers to the 6 Goswamis. He said, Krishnut Kirtana Gana Nartana Paro Premamritam Bonidhi Dhira Dhira Janapriyo Priyakaro Nirmatsaro Pujito. He said that the 6 Goswamis, headed by Sanatana and Rupa Goswami, we're dear to everybody in society, to the Dhiras and Adhiras, the ruffians and the saintly people alike. Why? Because they had no envy. Nirmatsara. There was no envy in them. So they could be trusted to settle disputes. If they came to that, they could be trusted to settle disputes judiciously, fairly. Now, in society, anytime there's a small dispute, what happens? You got to hire a lawyer, right? At a big expense. You bring it to the attention of the legal authorities, etc., civil or legal authorities, civil or criminal authorities. So, and then so much problem goes on and on and on. But at this time, since there's no brahmanas, this stuff goes on. But if you have actually a brahmin who's equipoised and not envious of anybody, they can give proper guidance to human society on not only how to settle disputes, but how to make progress in going back home, back to Godhead. Such a valuable service for the society. So in this case, we've seen that Gopal Chapal, he placed these items of worship of Goddess Bhavani in front of the gate or the front door of Srivas Thakur. Why did he do that? What is your view? Why did he do that?
Looks like naturally there's a understanding, superior way of worship and inferior way of worship. So at least from here, the activities looks like the Devi worship is inferior, and
Yes.
he wanted to defend him. He's not a better. It's interesting thing he has done it.
Isn't it? It's very interesting. I agree with you. So Srila Prabhupada will mention it's out of envy that he did this. Isn't it? What is that envy? Well, yeah, it's out of envy. So, everybody in life, we want to be considered an important person. We want to have control and to be in charge of things and be very well respected. And if someone has more respect than us, what is our material tendency? Bring that person down, defame them, sideline them any way we can. So that means we can become more prominent in society or have more respect than this person. That's called envy. Nirmatsara. I mean, matsara, not nirma, but matsara. Yeah. Different after the younger siblings of lust are envy, anger, those things. So apparently, out of envy, according to this discussion, out of envy, Gopal Chapala wanted to defame Srivas Thakur in this society, so that way he could feel he could be considered more important. And apparently, so Srivas Thakur was quite well known and appreciated there in Navadvip. Of course, he was hosting the nocturnal kirtans of Caitanya Mahaprabhu, which was a very prestigious position, and to do that. But whenever there's some position or of prestige in society, there are those who will try to bring that person down to their lower level. And it's interesting also to note that how did Srivas Thakur react when he noticed this paraphernalia of Bhavani Puja was there? How did he react? Are you with me? Or we're busy doing other things now?
He's tolerant. He was tolerant to it and was not disturbed with this other.
Yeah. Not only he was tolerant, he didn't think it was a big deal. He smiled. He smiled. Oh, so Srivas Thakur himself is not thinking this is a big deal. He's smiling, then he's making a joke out of it. This is very interesting, because especially in the light of what we'll see later from Lord Chaitanya's reaction and Srivas Thakur's reaction, they're quite different. So the devotee here, Srivas Thakur, the incarnation of Nada Muni, he's not considering it a big offense, right? But what is the offense? What is the offense? You know, when Bhrigu Muni wanted to see which of the three predominating deities of the universe was the most fixed in goodness, he visited them one after another. First, he visited Lord Brahma, who's his father. Then he visited Lord Shiva. And then he visited Lord Vishnu. When he approached Lord Brahma, he was a little insolent, but familiar, we'll say, familiar. And he didn't offer his respects first to Lord Brahma. You know this. Generally, the subordinate should offer pranams, especially dandavats, and at least some pranams to the superior like that. But Bhrigu Muni neglected to do that on purpose, just to see Lord Brahma's reaction. Then when he visited Lord Shiva, he insulted Lord Shiva with his words. Ah, you're all dirty. Don't touch me. And then when he visited Lord Vishnu, whose feet were being massaged by the goddess of fortune, Lakiji, he walked right in, and what did he do?
Kick him. He kicked him in the chest.
He kicked him. Yeah. That's why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments that people who say they're very proud of being descendants of Bhrigu Muni shouldn't be so proud. Being proud of someone who kicked Lord Vishnu in the chest. Anyway, even though it was for experimental purposes, still, not a very nice thing. So different levels of offense. The offense of Bhrigu Muni to Lord Brahma was in his mind. He didn't offer respects. The offense to Lord Shiva was in his words by insulting, and the offense to Lord Vishnu was bodily attack, kicking. But he noticed that Lord Vishnu, unlike the other two, was not at all disturbed. In fact, he said, "Oh, my dear Brahmin, have you injured your foot by kicking my hard chest?" So he saw that Lord Vishnu was the most fixed in the mode of goodness, was not at all disturbed. So here, Srivas Thakur also is not at all disturbed. What category of offense would you put the putting of the goddess Bhavani paraphernalia in front of Srivas Thakur's home? What category would you put that in? Mind, words, or bodily action? What do you say? The mind offense is the least serious, words is more serious, and bodily action is the most serious. What would you say?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
I think it was kind of bodily, kind of. It is the most.
You would say bodily. Okay. Because he's doing it with some physical paraphernalia.
Worst kind of offense.
Any other views?
Word.
You think it's word?
It's an action. It is a word, because mind means it remains in the mind. It doesn't manifest. It has manifested in this form, and there is no physical violence, so it can come under the words. That's what I think.
Okay. Yeah, someone could argue mind, some could argue words, because like with Bhrigu Muni and Lord Brahma, his offense was he didn't offer respect. It was a failure to act, as opposed to in this case, it's a action. So that action, you could say, is a kind of speech. So you could argue mind or words both. I'm not sure that it would classify as bodily, because there's not a particular attack on the body of Srivas Thakur, although, as Mother Suman is saying, that it's certainly some physical paraphernalia is being exhibited here for the purpose of defaming Srivas Thakur. But anyway, somewhere in that, I think it's somewhere in the earlier session, although it's not mentioned specifically here in the purports about what kind of offense. It's not the most serious offense, likely, but still, Srivas Thakur, in his being situated in the transcendental mode of goodness, is not at all disturbed by it, and in fact makes it into a joke. He smiles and he laughs and he says, "Oh, just see how I'm worshiping goddess Bhavani." So very interesting points. Shall we move on? Yeah, text 43.
Just want to share something on
Oh,
the
okay.
Here, one comment is Sajjanatosan. Sajjanatosan is also Bhaktivinoda Thakur's.
Yeah. Go ahead.
The point I was trying to say is how in Vedic society, the beautiful way a community was made, villages, and they are not, even though everyone is living with freedom, but there was rules and regulations, and was supervised by the people who are socially better situated, the Brahmins or Kshatriyas and or rich people. So when something happens, it was still the culture. I don't know now is there or not. Something happens, they used to call for the Bhadra, the gentleman. They used to report and they used to settle it down.
Yes.
They used to settle it down, and it makes sense because they know the families, they know the day and night them. It's very easy for them to do it, provided they do it right without any get partiality, like they got into this Brahmana within the pastime of Sakshi Gopal. So
Yes.
that time was a little awkward. They supported that young Brahmin, not young Brahmin, the Brahmin's son, who was not fair. But that's a different city. But in general, this is very nice because the social pressure has to be there, so one can act appropriately. Now no one wants to be bothered by anyone. No one wants to care. So in a community, there has to be rules and regulations, and that was being supervised by the people who are higher conscious.
Good points. Krishna Kirtan Prabhu, Krishna Village Prabhu. And in addition, and adding to that, and that wasn't arranged by law. It's not that every village passes a law. You gotta approach this person if there's a dispute. No, it was just by custom and culture. Everybody understood this was the best way to resolve things. So it was very easily and smoothly done in most cases. Of course, not always, but in most cases, things could be taken care of that way. So in the ISKCON society, they have some dispute resolution groups. They're called what is that called? ISKCON Resolve, I think it's called. Yeah, it was made by the GBC. Of course, if things can be resolved prior to that, it's probably a better thing, but they do have some arrangements. So there are apparently or supposedly unbiased persons who can hear from different sides in a dispute and come up with suggest a good process to follow to resolve the dispute.
By the way, just because you brought that, there's a seminar he's going to give 2 days next month, in month of September. I think near to Rath Yatra time probably. So just FYI, anyone wants.
Who's he?
Brajahari Prabhu.
Okay.
Hmm.
And where's the seminar going to be?
Online.
Okay. And you have
information I can send. Yeah.
Is it to open to everyone or just certain persons?
conditions apply. The conditions means the qualities has to be, one has to be really those. He says that it's better to have these qualities.
No,
So
but is the program open to
Public.
anybody, or is it you have to be, you have to be a temple president, you
I
have to be
think temple president. Yeah, I
okay,
think
okay,
temple
okay. So it
president-
may not be for everybody. Okay, okay. All right. Thank you. Text number 43.
তবে সব শিষ্ট লোক করে হাহাকার, হইছে কর্ম হেথা কইল কোনো দুরাচার।
Then all the assembled gentlemen exclaimed, "What is this? What is this? Who has performed such mischievous activities? Who is that sinful man?"
হাড়িকে আনিয়া সব দূর করাইল, জল গুময় দিয়া সেই স্থান লেপাইল।
They called for a sweeper, Hardy, who threw all the items of worship far away and cleansed the place by mopping it with a mixture of water and cow dung. Purport. The men in Vedic society who engage in public sanitary activities like picking up stool and sweeping the street are called Hardis. Sometimes they are untouchable, especially when engaged in their profession. Yet, such Hardis also have the right to become devotees. This is established by Sri Bhagavad Gita 9:32, where the Lord declares, Mam hi parta vyapashritya jepishu papayonaya striyo vaishas tata shudras tepi yanti param gvatim. O son of Prita, those who take shelter in me, though they be of lower birth, women, Vaishyas, merchants, and Shudras workers, can attain the supreme destination. There are many untouchables of the lower caste in India. But according to Vaishnava principles, everyone is welcome to accept this Krishna consciousness movement on the spiritual platform of life and thus be freed from trouble. Neither equality nor fraternity is possible on the material platform. And when Lord Caitanya declares, Trinadapi suni chena toror iva sahishnuna, he indicates that one must be above the material conception of life. When one thoroughly understands that he is not the material body, but a spiritual soul, he is even humbler than a man of the lower castes, for he is spiritually elevated. Such humility, in which one thinks himself lower than the grass, is called sunichatva, and being more tolerant than a tree is called sahishnutva, forbearance. Being situated in devotional service, not caring for the material conception of life, is called amanitva. Indifference to material respect. Yeah. Yet a devotee thus situated is called manada, for he is prepared to give honor to others without hesitation. Mahatma Gandhi started the Harijan movement to purify the untouchables. But he was a failure because he thought that one could become a Harijan, a personal associate of the Lord, through some kind of material adjustment. That is not possible. Unless one fully realizes that he is not the body, but is a spiritual soul, there is no question of his becoming a Harijan. Those who do not follow in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his disciplic succession cannot distinguish between matter and spirit, and therefore all their ideas are but a mixed up hodgepodge of problems. they are virtually lost in the bewildering network of Maya Devi. Lord Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita, Vidya Vinaya Sampanne Brahmane Gavihashtini Shuni Chaiva Swapakeja Pandita Samadarshana. A learned sage sees with equal vision. What are those things?
Cow, an elephant, and a
Brahmane, Gavi, cow, yeah, Brahman, cow, Hashtini, elephant, Shuni, dog, Swapake, dog eater, Pandita Samadarshana. But what does it really mean that he sees that, or he or she sees them on an equal level? What does it mean?
he doesn't see the body, but the soul and the Paramatma in every body.
Yes. Well, but he'll approach the Brahmin in the society for advice if there's a conflict. Will he approach the elephant for advice?
No,
How about the dog?
no.
Will he approach? How about the dog eater? No. So, although on the spiritual level he sees them equally, still there are material varieties. The material varieties are there. So it's not that just by calling someone a Harijan, even though we respect that on the spiritual level they are a spirit soul, but just by rubber stamping somebody a Harijan or like that, they can automatically become consulted on the best things to do, or that they, without changing their activities of which can be very dirty activities, may include worship of goddess Bhavani and eating meat and other kinds of things. Without changing those things, we cannot appreciate that they're on the material level, they're not to the level of the same level as a Brahmin. Even though you may say they're Harijan, that doesn't change anything about the physical status of their being. If they want to be elevated, they can take to the process of Krishna consciousness, as quoted there in the Bhagavad Gita verse. Lord Caitanya also said this, Je bhaje, she boro. Anybody who worships Krishna, je se boro, they're great. Abhaktahin cha, but the abhaktas, they're low, non-devotees. Krishna bhajana nahi, jati kuladi bicha. Though in the service of Krishna, when worship of Krishna is going on, we're not considering jati. Jati means birth. Kuladi means family or caste, family. We're not considering those things. So on that level, we can expect people, even those people from a difficult background, a fallen background, if they're worshiping Krishna very assiduously, then we accept them as great. Great. In fact, in the Kali Yuga, sometimes people object to this verse in the Bhagavad Gita because it makes some distinction. Ladies, Vaishyas, Shudras are being a lower caste. Well, everybody in the Kali Yuga is lower caste. Kalau Shudra Sambhava. Everybody. Who else is there? Maybe, mostly Shudras. If somebody might have elevated themselves to a Vaishya, perhaps. Kshatriyas, Brahmins, practically none. By birth, that is. Yeah. But sanskara bhavedvija, by practice of sanskaras, regulative principles, then somebody becomes twice born. Janamani jayati shudra sanskara bhavedvija. Veda pata doved vipra Brahma janatiti brahmana. And someone who actually knows Brahman is a Brahmin. Brahmin means someone who knows Brahma, spirit, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his expansions. So, as you might know, Srila Prabhupada mentions Mahatma Gandhi, also known affectionately as Gandhiji. In the beginning of his movement of Swaraj in India, he he had some sway over his followers about how they should live and how they should marry. So in the beginning of his movement, up through like 1920 or so, he would encourage the Brahmin followers to marry Brahmin men to marry Brahmin ladies, and Vaishya and marrying Vaishya. Later, going further up to the 1930s, he insisted, I don't know if you know this, that the people from the untouchable background marry Brahmins. Did you know that? Did you know that? Just by labeling the person from a lower background as Harijan, then he would, without having undergone any ritual or performance of sacrifice or performance of purificatory activities or regulative principles. So this was one of the irritations, criticisms given to Mahatma Gandhi. And Srila Prabhupada also seems to say that, yes, he's saying here directly that just by calling someone a different name doesn't necessarily purify their consciousness nor their physical material activities. Lord Chaitanya can do that, even for the lowest person. Patita Pavana Hetu Tav Avatar. Even his Hetu means he came, the cause of his appearance was to deliver the most fallen people. So he's certainly can deliver everybody, even the untouchables, those who are coming from a bad or difficult background, lower background. Sometimes people say that Lord Chaitanya specifically only came for the untouchables, that's it, not the higher class people. But that's also a mistake. Actually, Lord Chaitanya came to deliver everybody. Lower class, everybody in the Kali Yuga is low. So we have him delivering Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was the Raj Pandit. We have him delivering, the 6 Goswamis. Some of them were like Gopal Bhatta Goswami was the son of the Pujari at Sri Ranga Temple. Very high class persons, as well as the low class persons. Everybody, Lord Chaitanya was, because in this age, everybody is fallen in Kali Yuga. So here this distinction is made. So in the temple, it's a different thing. Sometimes because of material consciousness, people think that, in the temple, only the lower class devotees will clean the temple, and the more elevated persons, they can do other pujari service. But actually, in the Guru Vastakam prayer, the verses Sri Vigraharadhana Nityanana Sringaratan Mandira Marjanado. So that verse means the spiritual master likes to see his disciples engaged in deity worship, which begins with cleaning the temple. Yes. So that the cleaning of the temple and the worship of the deity are on the same absolute platform of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that's not a material activity by any means. That purifies the heart by cleaning the temple of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the spiritual master, your spiritual master, will be very pleased with that service. Comments, observations, and questions? Text 45.
3 দিন রহি সেই গোপাল চাপাল, সর্বাঙ্গে হইল কুষ্ঠ, বহে রক্তধার।
After 3 days, leprosy attacked Gopal Chapal, and blood oozed from sores all over his body. See, it's an interesting, even though Srivas Thakur didn't take it seriously. Text 46.
সর্বাঙ্গ বেরিল কীটে কাটে নিরন্তর অসহ্য বেদনা দুঃখে জলয়ে অন্তর
Incessantly covered with germs and insects biting him all over his body, Gopal Chapal felt unbearable pain. His entire body burned in distress.
গঙ্গা ঘাটে বৃক্ষতলে রহে তবসিয়া একদিন বলে কিছু প্রভুকে দেখিয়া
Since leprosy is an infectious disease, Gopal Chapal left the village to sit on the bank of the Ganges underneath a tree. One day, however, he saw Caitanya Mahaprabhu passing by and spoke to him as follows. So there was some quarantine there. He had to leave because he could communicate that disease to others.
গ্রাম সম্বন্ধে আমি তোমার মাতুল ভাগিনা মই কুষ্ঠ বেদিতে হইয়াছি বেকুল
My dear nephew, this is Gopal Chapal speaking to Caitanya Mahaprabhu. I am your maternal uncle in our village relationship. Uncle, yeah. Please see how greatly this attack of leprosy has afflicted me.
লোক সব উদ্ধারিতে তোমার অবতার মই বড় দুঃখী মোরে করহ উদ্ধার
As an incarnation of God, you're delivering so many fallen souls. I am also a greatly unhappy fallen soul. Kindly deliver me by your mercy. Purport. It appears that although Gopal Chapal was sinful, talkative, and insulting, he nevertheless had the qualification of simplicity. Thus, he believed Caitanya Mahaprabhu to be the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who had come to deliver all fallen souls. And he appealed for his own deliverance, seeking the mercy of the Lord. He did not know, however, that the delivery of the fallen does not consist of curing their bodily diseases. Although it is also a fact that when a man is delivered from the material clutches, his material bodily diseases are also automatically cured. Gopal Chapal simply wanted to be delivered from the bodily sufferings of leprosy. But Sri Caitanya, although accepting his sincere appeal, wanted to inform him of the real cause of his suffering. Text 50.
এত শুনি মহাপ্রভুর হইল ক্রুদ্ধ মন ক্রুধাবেশে বলে তারে তর্জন বচন
Hearing this, Caitanya Mahaprabhu appeared greatly angry, and in that angry mood, he spoke some words chastising him.
আরে পাপী ভক্ত দেশি তরে না উদ্ধারিমু কোটি জন্ম এই মতে পীড়ায় খাওয়াইমু
Oh, sinful person, envious of pure devotees, I shall not deliver you. Rather, I shall have you bitten by these germs for many millions of years. Purport. We should note herein that all our sufferings in this material world, especially from disease, are due to our past sinful activities. And of all sinful activities, actions directed against a pure devotee out of sheer envy are considered extremely severe. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu wanted Gopal Chapal to understand the cause of his suffering. Any person who disturbs a pure devotee engaged in broadcasting the holy name of the Lord is certainly punished like Gopal Chapal. This is the instruction of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu. As we shall see, one who offends a pure devotee can never satisfy Caitanya Mahaprabhu unless and until he sincerely regrets his offense and thus rectifies it. Sometimes we read or hear that the offense toward a devotee and sinful activities are in a different category, but here Srila Prabhupada puts them in the same category. He calls them sinful activities. Sinful activities of, in the case here, of offending Srivas Thakur by this Gopal Chapal. Narottam Das Thakur, in his prayer to the Vaishnav Goshai, says, Haristhane aparadhe Hare Harinam. You know this? Haristhane aparadhe. If you make an offense to Hari, Tare Harinam, you can be delivered by chanting the holy names. Thomas Thane aparadhe nahi paritran. But by offending the devotee, the Vaishnava, there's no deliverance. The only deliverance, as mentioned here, the only way is to get forgiveness from that devotee. Even though in this case, Srivas Thakur didn't take it seriously, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took it very seriously. So it's sometimes said that you're walking on the beach. I don't know if you've had this experience. I had this experience in India. Walking on the beach in the sun during the daytime. The sun on your head is hot, but you can bear it. But the hot sand on you cannot bear that. It's too hard. So you have to get off the beach, get off the sand. So similarly, Lord Krishna will not bother so much for sins or offenses directed at him personally, but he won't tolerate the offenses to his devotees. So that means, we have to be very careful to intentionally and unintentionally avoid this type of offense to devotees. The association of devotees is very conducive to advancement in Krishna consciousness. In fact, without the association of devotees, it's practically impossible to advance in Krishna consciousness. At the same time, the association of devotees makes it a possibility that one can also have more opportunity to commit offenses. So an intelligent devotee, someone who's very concerned about their own spiritual life and the spiritual life of those around them, will take great care to avoid this offense like that committed by Gopal Chapal, which didn't seem very serious, but in fact resulted in him getting leprosy, and Lord Chaitanya wishing that he would be bitten by germs for not just for one lifetime, but for millions of years. Very serious. Questions, comments, observations?
Babu, can I ask something?
Yeah, sure, of course.
You were reading about, like offended a pure devotee, but what about offending somebody who is not pure, who is on the level of, trying to become pure? Is that the same amount of punishment you got from Krishna, or just different?
That's a very good question. Sometimes it's seen that when instructing someone who's like a junior devotee, they will become offended. And so what to do? I know you're a senior devotee. I know that. So they'll say, "Oh, you've offended me." But Krishna knows the intent of your approach to anybody, and we've tried to minimize their offenses. At the same time, the first offense is to blaspheme devotees who've dedicated their lives to propagating the holy names of the Lord. You know that the first offense against chanting the holy name.
Yeah.
And so I was sometimes saying, "Oh, that means just those elevated devotees who are dedicated their lives, not just not just this devotee or that devotee." But I heard Srila Prabhupada commenting on that offense. He said, no. He said specifically any devotee. So there are different levels of devotees, yes, and when we should be careful, or at least I have to be careful. I know I have to be careful to avoid of unnecessarily and offending anybody, but particularly the more advanced devotees, but all devotees also is a good rule, a good plan to follow. What do you think?
That's how I think, like any devotee who's chanting Hare Krishna Maha Mantra,
Yeah,
need to be respected and
yeah.
not be offended.
In the discussion of the different levels of devotees, Lord Chaitanya says that, there's, the Kanishta Adhikari, Madhyama Adhikari, Uttama Adhikari. So Kanishta Adhikari, one has to give respect also, even though, they may not appreciate a lot of different things of activities of devotional service and might be have some material attaints and stuff. Still, respect is given within the mind, not to disturb them too much. Then there's the Madhyamadikari. Those who are initiated by a bona fide spiritual master and engaging regularly in devotional service, chanting 16 rounds, following the 4 regulative principles, etc. One should offer obeisances and make friendship with those devotees. And the person that devotee who is always engaged in spreading the glories of Lord Chaitanya's service and the chanting of the holy names and is at a high position of realization, one should serve that person, serve those devotees, if we can find them. Of course, we in ISKCON, we recognize that Srila Prabhupada is that most elevated personality, and within everybody within ISKCON ideally aspires to serve and continue glorify him and his mission for the service and pleasure of Lord Chaitanya. And I know you know that, so I'm just saying more. Thank you for the question. Good question. Okay. Well, let's do one more verse. Yeah.
শ্রীবাসে করাইলি তুই ভবানী পূজন কুটি জন্ম হবে তোর রৌরবে পতন
You have made Srivas Thakur appear to have been worshipping the goddess Bhavani. Simply for this offense, you will have to fall down into hellish life for 10 million births. Purport. Okay. There are many tantric followers who, wishing to eat meat and drink wine, practice the black art of worshipping the goddess Bhavani in a crematorium. Such fools also consider this Bhavani puja to be as good as worship of Lord Krishna in devotional service. But such abominable tantric activities performed by so-called shamis and yogis are herein condemned by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He declares that such Bhavani puja for drinking wine and eating meat quickly plunges one into hellish life. The method of worship itself is already hellish, and its results must also be hellish and nothing more. It's kind of late. I don't think I would like to talk about this purport next time. It's a really good purport, but I don't think we have time today. So let's stop here. Thank you all for your attention and attendance today at the reading of Sri Caitanya Caritamrita. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Pancha
Hare Krishna.
kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mother Vindhyavali,
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Mother Nilambari.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Sorry, I was late.